Welcome to Chasing Curiosity TV. Subscribe and press the bell icon for more updates. Breaking news, tensions have erupted in the South China Sea as U.S. warships steam towards Scarborough Shoal following a dramatic and unexpected collision between Chinese vessels. The world's attention is now fixed on these contested waters, where the stakes have suddenly risen to unprecedented levels. The South China Sea is on high alert. Naval patrols from several nations are now on standby, their crews bracing for further escalation as uncertainty ripples across the region. What began as a routine confrontation quickly spiraled out of control. In a high-stakes game of maritime brinkmanship, a Chinese Coast Guard cutter collided with a Chinese maritime militia ship during an aggressive maneuver intended to intimidate a nearby Philippine patrol boat. The incident unfolded in full view of international observers, highlighting the volatility of these disputed waters. The impact was severe, leaving one Chinese ship badly damaged and listing dangerously, smoke billowing from its hull. The chaos that followed exposed the unpredictable nature of China's so-called gray zone tactics, actions that blur the line between peace and conflict, often leaving little room for de-escalation. This blue-on-blue incident, a rare case of Chinese forces colliding with each other, serves as a shocking sign of miscalculation and a lack of centralized control. Analysts warn that such mistakes could easily trigger a wider conflict, drawing in regional and global powers. The U.S. responded within hours, deploying 2 advanced warships to the area. This rapid show of force sends a clear message to Beijing. The United States stands firmly with its treaty ally, the Philippines, and will not tolerate further aggression in these vital sea lanes. The crisis has now expanded beyond Scarborough Shoal. At stake is not just a disputed reef, but the very principle of freedom of navigation and the delicate balance of power in the Indo-Pacific. Control of these waters means influence over global trade and security. Around the world, anxiety is mounting. In living rooms and command centers alike, people watch with bated breath, aware that the decisions made in the coming hours could shape the future of the region, and perhaps the world. The world is watching, waiting to see if this crisis will de-escalate through diplomacy or explode into open conflict. Every move is being scrutinized, every statement analyzed for signs of intent. The next hours and days are critical. Military and political leaders are racing against time to prevent a misstep that could ignite a much larger confrontation. The South China Sea has become the epicenter of a global power struggle, where the actions of a few could determine the fate of many. The world holds its breath as history unfolds at dawn. On August 18th, the tranquil waters of Scarborough Shoal, a remote reef in the South China Sea, became the stage for a dramatic maritime confrontation that would capture the world's attention. The Philippine patrol vessel, BRP Datu Sande, was on routine patrol, keeping a watchful eye on local fishermen who rely on these contested waters for their livelihoods. The crew scanned the horizon, alert to any sign of trouble. But their vigilance was warranted. A flotilla of Chinese Coast Guard and maritime militia ships loomed nearby, their presence a constant reminder of the ongoing territorial dispute. The Chinese vessels shadowed the Filipinos, their intentions unmistakably hostile. At precisely 9:45 a.m., the tension reached a boiling point. The Chinese Coast Guard cutter, CCG 5305, suddenly accelerated, aggressively maneuvering to cut off the path of the Filipino patrol boat. The air crackled with anxiety as the 2 ships drew dangerously close. In a shocking twist, the Chinese cutter miscalculated its turn and slammed violently, not into the Filipino vessel, but into its own militia ship, Yuegang U-00231. The impact was thunderous, echoing across the water. The militia boat's hull was torn open, seawater pouring in as the panicked crew scrambled to keep their vessel afloat. Buckets and pumps appeared as they fought desperately against the flooding, their shouts lost in the chaos. Meanwhile, the Filipino sailors, who had been the intended targets of the maneuver, watched in disbelief. Cameras and phones in hand, they documented every moment, capturing the chaos and confusion that unfolded before them. This incident laid bare the recklessness of China's aggressive tactics in the region. What was meant to intimidate the Philippine crew had instead backfired spectacularly, exposing the dangers of such brinkmanship to the world. The Philippine crew wisely kept their distance, continuing to record crucial evidence. Their footage would soon become vital in international discussions about the escalating conflict. This was no mere accident at sea. It was the direct result of an aggressive policy, one that puts lives and regional stability at risk. The event underscored just how quickly these maritime confrontations can spiral out of control, threatening to ignite a much larger conflict in these disputed waters. Scarborough Shoal, once a quiet fishing ground, has now become a flashpoint for regional tensions, a symbol of the broader struggle for control in the South China Sea. As news of the incident spread, the world watched anxiously, aware that the next move in these contested waters could have far-reaching consequences. The world is on edge. News of the collision reaches the U.S. 7th Fleet. The response is swift. Two warships, USS John Finn and USS Gabrielle Giffords, are ordered to Scarborough Shoal. The John Finn, a guided missile destroyer, and the Giffords, a nimble littoral combat ship, arrive and establish a patrol perimeter. Their presence alone shifts the balance, signaling U.S. resolve without direct intervention. A Seahawk helicopter launches, monitoring the situation from above. The U.S. Navy's message de-escalation through strength and unwavering support for allies. The harassment ends for the day as the American ships stand watch. The standoff is now under new watchful eyes. Scarborough Shoal, Panatag to Filipinos, Huangyandao to China, is more than rocks and reefs. It's a symbol of sovereignty and struggle. Just 120 nautical miles from Luzon, it lies within the Philippines' exclusive economic zone. China seized control in 2012, blockading Filipino fishermen and ignoring a 2016 international tribunal ruling in Manila's favor. Despite legal defeat, China has fortified the region, building military outposts on artificial islands. Scarborough remains unconquered, a potential site for further militarization. Every incident here tests international law and the resolve of the Philippines and its allies. For China, it's about regional dominance. For the US and others, it's about upholding the rules-based order. The shoal's strategic value makes every confrontation a global concern. In the wake of the collision, Manila and Washington present a united front. Philippine Defense Secretary Teodoro condemns China's reckless actions, praising his crew's professionalism. The Philippines highlights its alliance with the U.S., welcoming the rapid deployment of American warships. The 1951 Mutual Defense Treaty is invoked, a clear warning to Beijing. In Washington, the Pentagon denounces China's unsafe behavior and reaffirms support for the Philippines. The U.S. calls on China to respect international law and the 2016 tribunal ruling. Both capitals stress that any attack on Philippine vessels could trigger a military response. The coordinated statements frame China as the aggressor and the Philippines as the victim. The stakes are raised, further escalation could have catastrophic consequences. The world is put on notice. The alliance is firm. The red line is clear. The lead-up to the collision was a tense ballet of intimidation. Chinese Coast Guard and militia ships formed a cordon, boxing in the BRP Datu Sanday to block access to the shoal. The CCG 5305 made high-speed passes, while militia boats closed in from all sides. During a risky maneuver, the cutter struck its own militia ship. Overhead, a Philippine surveillance plane documented the harassment, even as a Chinese helicopter attempted to intimidate it. The arrival of U.S. warships changed the calculus. No more aggressive moves from China. American radar and helicopters monitored every vessel, raising the stakes for any miscalculation. The dance of intimidation was checked by a show of deterrence. The U.S. presence stabilized the situation, at least for now. The world's eyes remain fixed on these contested waters. On board the BRP Datu Sanday, Filipino sailors recount a day of chaos and danger. They were more aggressive than ever, one crew member recalls. The big white ship came at us like it wanted to hit us. The Chinese used water cannons, trying to blind and intimidate. Then, a thunderous crash. The Chinese cutter struck its own militia boat. Smoke and panic followed as the militia vessel began to flood. The Filipino crew prepared for rescue but held back, wary of Chinese propaganda. Aerial footage confirms the sequence: aggressive Chinese maneuvers, water cannon blasts, and the collision. The evidence is clear: reckless harassment led to disaster. China may spin the story, but the facts are undeniable. The incident is a case study in aggression gone wrong. The world now sees the risks of unchecked escalation. The collision sends shockwaves across Asia and beyond. Vietnam urges restraint, wary of China's assertiveness. Japan and Australia back the rule of law and freedom of navigation, isolating Beijing diplomatically. China blames the Philippines and the U.S., calling the American deployment provocative. The region is divided. U.S. allies demand respect for international law, while China pushes its own narrative. Southeast Asian nations are caught in the middle, economically tied to China, but wary of its ambitions. The diplomatic front hardens, but the risk of conflict remains. The South China Sea is now a global flashpoint. One misstep could ignite a much larger crisis. The world holds its breath. The immediate crisis may be contained for now, but the risk of escalation is higher than ever before. Tensions simmer just beneath the surface, and the world watches anxiously as rival navies face off in the darkness, each side wary of making the first move. In these tense waters, a single miscalculation, an accidental shot fired, a collision in the dark, could trigger a chain reaction that spirals out of control. The margin for error is razor thin, and the consequences could be catastrophic for everyone involved. If China were to attack a Philippine vessel, the Mutual Defense Treaty between the United States and the Philippines could draw in the U.S. military, transforming a regional dispute into a direct confrontation between two global powers. The stakes are not just local, they are international. The economic stakes are massive. A conflict in these waters would disrupt global trade routes, sending shockwaves through the world economy. Billions of dollars in goods pass through the South China Sea every day, and any disruption could lead to shortages, price spikes, and economic instability far beyond Asia. The South China Sea is a vital artery for global commerce, connecting manufacturers, markets, and consumers across continents. Its strategic importance cannot be overstated. The region is now locked in an arms race. China's navy continues to grow in size and sophistication, while the Philippines, with significant U.S. support, is rapidly modernizing its own forces. The balance of power is shifting, and uncertainty reigns. Other Southeast Asian nations are also boosting their defenses, investing in new technology and training. The destructive potential of any conflict is rising, as more countries prepare for the possibility of war. What was once a series of isolated skirmishes could now escalate into a high-tech war, with advanced weaponry, drones, and cyber capabilities changing the nature of conflict at sea. As night falls, U.S. warships remain on station, a symbol of resolve and deterrence. Their presence sends a clear message: the world is watching and the stakes could not be higher. Damaged Chinese ships serve as a stark reminder of the dangers of aggression and the high cost of miscalculation. Every incident brings the region closer to the brink. The world hopes for restraint and diplomacy, but tensions remain unresolved. Leaders gather in tense meetings while ordinary people watch the news with growing anxiety, hoping for peace but fearing the worst. The brink of conflict is dangerously close. Every decision, every movement is scrutinized, as navies remain on high alert through the night. As dawn breaks over the contested waters, the future of the South China Sea hangs in the balance. The choices made in the coming days will shape not just the fate of this region but the course of global peace and security for years to come.